Short is the story, long is the life.
Wukong Archive presents China Urban Legends EP14, Suzhou University Red Building. Hello everyone. Today's story takes place at the main campus of Suzhou University, the old campus in Tiansizhuang, the former site of Dongwu University, also known as Suzhou University. And at the heart of that campus stands the Red Building. Suzhou University's main campus is in Tiansizhuang, the former site of Dongwu University. Founded in 1900 by the American Methodist Episcopal Mission, Suzhou University was one of China's earliest modern universities. The entire campus is filled with Republic-era buildings, all red brick Western-style architecture standing quietly among the green trees of Zhongnan. The most famous and most mysterious building on this campus is called the Red Building. It stands in the northeast corner, built in 1903, one of the earliest structures of the university. Its front features semicircular arched doors, white columns, and tall narrow arched windows. Several large magnolia trees grow in front, their trunks so thick they require two people to embrace. A sign now reads Suzhou University Museum Preparatory Office. But every Suzhou University student knows the Red Building's true purpose. It houses the university's psychological counseling center. Why put a counseling center in a century-old building? Among the students, there is a saying, the building itself isn't quite right. Only the constant flow of people passing through keeps whatever is in it under control. This story comes from a friend of mine from Suzhou named Ming. He entered Suzhou University in 2010. He says that his biggest regret from 4 years of college was going to the Red Building during his freshman year. Not long after starting university, he joined the Psychology Association. Their meetings were held in the Red Building. The first time he went to a meeting, the club president led them across the lawn toward a small red brick building. The autumn sunlight fell on the wall, staining the whole building a warm red. The president said, "This is the Red Building." Ming says the first time he walked inside, he felt something strange. Outside was bright autumn sunshine, but once through the door, the temperature dropped several degrees. Not the chill of air conditioning, it was a cold seeping from the walls and the floor. The corridor had dark red wooden flooring that creaked with every step. Old black and white photographs hung on the walls, images of the campus from the Dongwu University era. At the end of the corridor, he noticed a half-open door that revealed a staircase leading upward. He asked the club president what was up there. "That's the stairway to the second floor," the president said. "The second floor is closed. Don't go up." When Ming asked why, the president didn't answer. One day in November, the association meeting ended early. Ming walked out alone. When he reached the end of the corridor, he stopped and looked at that room. The padlock hung from its hasp, unlocked. He told himself he'd just take a quick look. He pushed the door open. Inside was a narrow wooden staircase, steep and worn smooth by countless hands grasping the railing. At the landing hung an oval mirror, its surface clouded with dust. The wooden steps groaned under his weight as he climbed. The second floor was completely different from the first floor. The corridor was much narrower, much darker. Magnolia branches outside blocked most of the light. Closed doors lined both sides, their paint yellowed and darkened with age. The air smelled of old books and dried flower petals. He walked to the end of the corridor. A large framed photograph hung on the wall, a group of young people in Republic-era clothing, standing in front of the Red Building's portico. At the bottom, a line of small characters read, Dongwu University Literature Research Society, full group photo, spring 1937. Ming's eyes swept across those young faces. He stopped at the second row, far left. A young woman in a light blue qipao, her hair braided over her chest. Her features were delicate, her lips slightly curved. But her eyes weren't looking at the camera. She was looking off to the side. That look sent a chill down Gu Ming's spine. Everyone else was looking at the lens. Only she was looking elsewhere. Later, Gu Ming found an opportunity to ask the club president who the woman in the photo was. The president put down the papers he was holding. His expression seemed to be one that had been waiting for someone to ask this question. She was named Shen Yulan, the president said. A Chinese literature student at Donggu University. She joined the Literature Research Society in 1937. What happened to her? In the autumn of 1937, the Japanese army occupied Suzhou. Donggu University relocated to Shanghai. But Shen Yulan stayed behind. She was said to have joined the resistance activities. In 1940, someone found her on the second floor of the Red Building. She had already passed away. The coroner ruled it as heart failure. She was 22 years old. Gu Ming quit the Psychology Association after that. He couldn't say whether he was afraid, he just didn't want to see that woman's eyes in the photograph again. Sophomore year. One autumn night around 10 o'clock, he was walking past the Red Building on his way back to the dormitory. October in Suzhou, the night was already cold. The dim yellow streetlight fell on fallen leaves. The Red Building's wall showed a dark, heavy color in the lamplight. As he passed by, he unconsciously glanced up at the second-floor window. Through the gap in the curtains, a faint light seeped out. Not the white light of fluorescent lamps, a warm yellow glow. Like candlelight. He remembered a saying that had circulated in Suzhou for many years: the Red Building's lights are never lit at night. If they're lit, someone is there. He walked faster. Gu Ming eventually graduated and stayed in Suzhou for work. He occasionally returns to his alma mater. Every time he passes the Red Building, he can't help but look up at the second-floor windows. Twice he has seen light behind those windows. Both times, he did not stop to look a second time. Later, he heard more about Shen Yulan from a retired professor. The professor said Shen Yulan was an excellent student who wrote beautifully. She was the editor of the Literature Research Society's journal. In 1940, when she died, a stack of manuscript paper lay beside her, an unfinished essay titled Records of the Red Building. That stack of paper later disappeared. The professor also said that a week before she vanished, Shen Yulan had told a friend something the friend never forgot. Shen Yulan said, "Every night I hear footsteps upstairs. Not on the floor directly above me, higher. I'm on the second floor, but the footsteps are on the third floor. But the Red Building has no third floor." Her friend thought she was joking. Shen Yulan shook her head. "It's not mice. It's footsteps. Every night, walking from one end of the corridor to the other, then back again. She's looking for something." She? Shen Yulan didn't answer. Gu Ming says to this day he still doesn't know who Shen Yulan's she was, or what happened on Shen Yulan's last night in the Red Building. But every time he passes the Red Building, he remembers that saying, "The Red Building's lights are never lit at night. If they're lit, someone is there." 364 days a year, those second-floor windows are dark. Only one night does the light appear. Which night? No one knows. Perhaps tonight. A retired professor at Suzhou University said the Red Building was occupied by the Japanese army during the war. After Shen Yulan's death in 1940, strange things kept happening. Some people said they heard a woman crying from the second-floor window at night. Some said they saw a figure moving behind the second-floor window, but when they went inside, there was nothing. The university once considered demolishing the Red Building, but every time they tried, something strange would happen. So they stopped trying. They put the psychological counseling center in the building, hoping the flow of human energy would suppress whatever was there. The professor said, "Some buildings are built on the wrong piece of land. It's not the building's fault, and it's not the people's fault. It's the land itself that's the problem." Ming said there's another campus legend. When Dongwu University was first being built, the area in front of the red building was an empty field. In 1903, when workers were digging the foundation, they uncovered something in the soil. They said it was a coffin. A very old coffin, not from the Qing dynasty, but older. The foreman had the coffin moved away. But the next day, the foundation pit collapsed into a hole. And there were more coffins in the hole. How it was handled afterward, no one knows. There is no record in the university archives. It's as if those coffins never existed. But Ming says he knows why there's no record. Because Dongwu University was run by the American church, and the church considered such things unlucky. They wouldn't allow it to be written down. So the secret of those coffins was buried along with that pit, underneath the red building. The old professor said a sentence Ming has always remembered. He said, "When you stand on the second floor of the red building and listen carefully, you can hear a sound beneath the floorboards. Not mice, not insects. It's a very faint sound, the sound between wood and earth. Like something underground turning over in its sleep." Ming later asked many locals in Suzhou about the red building. A maintenance worker who had worked at Suzhou University for 40 years told him that in the 1970s, the second floor of the red building was converted into staff dormitories. Not a single person who lived there lasted more than a month. Some said they heard footsteps pacing the corridor every night. Some said they woke up in the middle of the night to see a human silhouette outside the window, but the window was on the second floor, impossible for anyone to be standing outside. One person said that on his very first night there, he saw a woman in a cheap house standing at the end of the corridor with her back to him. He called out. She disappeared. He moved out the next day. The maintenance worker said the university eventually stopped letting anyone live on the second floor. The entire floor was locked up. Only the Psychology Association used the first floor activity room. But even during the day, no one wanted to stay alone in the red building. The president of the Psychology Association was always the last person to leave, not because he was responsible for locking up, but because no one else dared to stay alone in the building waiting to lock up. Ming said that in his graduating year, the Psychology Association recruited new members. He went back to help with the first meeting. Walking into the red building, he still felt that strange coldness. The corridor was still the same, dark red wooden floorboards still creaking, the old photographs still showing those faces. He walked to the end of the corridor and glanced at the room that led to the second floor. The door was locked with a heavy padlock. But he noticed a piece of paper tucked under the door. A white corner was visible. He didn't pick it up. He didn't want to know what was written on it. That piece of paper might have been slipped under the door late one night. Or it might have been slipped there 80 years ago. Ming sometimes thinks about something. Shen Yulan was 22 when she died. She lived on the second floor of the red building for 3 years. Every night she heard footsteps from above. But she lived on the second floor. Above her should be the third floor. The red building has no third floor. She said the footsteps came from the third floor. So what did she hear? Was it the sound of a floor that doesn't exist in physical space? Or was it not footsteps at all, but something imitating footsteps, waiting to be discovered by someone curious enough to find out? And then that person would understand why the red building has no third floor, and why those coffins were buried beneath its foundation. Ming later researched the local history of Suzhou. In the Tian Sizhuang area, this piece of land was once a burial ground. Not an official cemetery, a mass grave for unclaimed bodies. During the Ming dynasty, this area outside Suzhou's city walls was specifically used for burying bodies with no one to claim them. During the Qing dynasty, the land was repurposed for farming, but many things remained buried beneath the soil. When Suzhou University chose this location in 1900, the church people didn't know the history of the land. By the time the foundation digging uncovered things, it was too late. The land had been purchased. Construction had already begun. The church people could only pretend they hadn't seen anything and continue building. But strange things kept happening after the red building was completed. The earliest record dates to 1905. The building had only been in use for 2 years. An American female teacher teaching at Suzhou University lived in a room on the second floor of the red building. She lived there for less than 3 months before insisting on moving out. She said every night she heard tapping inside the walls. Not rats. Rhythmic tapping. As if someone was tapping their fingers against the wooden boards from inside the wall. 1 tap, 2 taps, 3 taps. Then silence. Then the tapping would start again. After the American teacher moved out, that room was never occupied again. Ming later figured something out. The coffins that were dug up from underground, they were moved. The occupants of those coffins were taken from the place where they had rested peacefully for a long time. Their bones were moved somewhere else and hastily buried again. But their spirits didn't follow. Spirits stay where they belong. The coffins could be moved, the bones could be relocated, but spirits don't leave. They stayed beneath the foundation of the red building. They've stayed for 100 years. Were the footsteps on the second floor actually footsteps from the first floor being transmitted through the walls? Or were they footsteps walking on that third floor which no longer exists, the floor where the displaced coffins were once stacked, a space that doesn't exist in the architectural blueprints but still exists in another dimension, the pacing never stopping? Ming says he doesn't want to know the answer. Some answers aren't meant for the living. The occupants of those coffins, they might know. But they won't tell. They just walk the corridors of the red building every night. From one end to the other. For 70 years. 80 years. 100 years. They're still walking. Ming says there's an even older legend at Suzhou University. The land where the red building stands was, during the Ming dynasty, a temporary morgue where unclaimed bodies were stored. When someone died far from home with no relatives to claim the body, it was placed in the Yizhuang and left there until someone came. If no one ever came, the body would simply remain there until it rotted. This particular Yizhuang in Tiansizhuang was said to have been established during the Jiajing reign of the Ming dynasty. Later, when Japanese pirates, Wokou, raided the outskirts of Suzhou, many people died, and all the bodies were sent to this Yizhuang. One year, when plague killed too many people and the building could no longer hold them, they began burying the bodies underground. So beneath the red building, there isn't just one layer of coffins. There are layers upon layers, centuries of accumulation from the Ming dynasty through the Qing dynasty. When Suzhou University chose this site in 1900, they saw an empty field and thought it was a good location. They didn't know why that field was empty. Because no one wanted to build on that land. Even if a house was built, no one could live in it peacefully. But the missionaries didn't believe in such things. They thought it was Chinese superstition. They built the building anyway. And then they discovered that some things aren't a matter of belief. After the American female teacher moved out, a Chinese male teacher moved into the same room. He fell ill after 1 week. Not an ordinary illness. Every night he had the same nightmare, he was lying in a coffin. The lid wasn't on. He could see the wooden ceiling of the red building slowly pressing down toward him. Lower and lower. until it completely covered him. Then he would wake up in a state of suffocation. After he moved out, the room was permanently locked. No one ever lived in it again. Ming says the corridor on the second floor of the Red Building has 7 doors. In the 121 years from 1903 to 2024, every door has been opened and locked again at some point. But there is one door that has never been opened. Not because it can't be opened, because no one wants to open it. No one dares. That door is at the deepest end of the corridor, next to the window. It has no handle, only a small round peephole. When you look through it, you see nothing but darkness. Someone once shone a flashlight through the hole. They said they saw a bed. An old wooden bed. The blanket was neatly folded, as if someone had just made it, waiting for someone to sleep in it. But no one has ever slept there. For over 100 years, that bed has been waiting for a person who will never come. Ming later heard an interesting story from a friend who worked at the Suzhou Cultural Relics Bureau. In 2008, the Bureau conducted an underground cultural relics survey of the Tiansizhuang campus. The survey results showed the presence of extensive underground cavities and suspected brick and stone structures beneath the Red Building's foundation. The survey report recommended further exploration to determine whether ancient tombs or underground structures existed. But Suzhou University did not approve further exploration. The official reason: no impact on building safety, no need to proceed. Ming's friend said that report is sitting in a file at the Cultural Relics Bureau, numbered 2008 TC0047. He told Ming that if he really wanted to know what's beneath the Red Building, he could request to see that report. Ming said he would never request to see it. He already knows what's underground without looking. Ming says he has lived in Suzhou for over 30 years. He went to school in Suzhou from elementary through university. He has heard countless legends about Suzhou: the sword pool at Tiger Hill, the bell of Hansan Temple, the Taihu stones of the humble administrator's garden. Every scenic spot has a beautiful legend. But only the legend of the Red Building is not beautiful. It is heavy, oppressive. Something you don't want to explore deeply. Because the protagonists of other legends are famous scholars, beauties, historical figures. The protagonists of the Red Building legend are a 22-year-old female student and people whose names have been lost to time. They were buried underground. Their coffins were dug up and disposed of carelessly. Their spirits remain where they were. They don't know where to go. So every night they pace the corridors of the Red Building, from one end to the other. For 70 years. 80 years. 100 years. What they're looking for is not a thing. What they're looking for is a place where they can finally rest. But that place has been occupied by the Red Building for 100 years. They can't get in. And they can't leave. Suzhou University offers an elective course called Suzhou Local Culture. The instructor is a professor in his 60s who has lived in Suzhou his entire life. During one class on Suzhou folk legends, the professor brought up the story of the Red Building, but he didn't call it by name. There is an old red building on the Tiansizhuang campus, he said. Built in 1903. There's a saying about this building that has been passed down for a very long time. The professor paused. He looked at the students in the classroom. I don't recommend going for walks near that building at night, he said. Not because it's unsafe. It's because the atmosphere in some places is not suitable for the living. After class, a student raised their hand and asked the professor directly, "Is there really a ghost in that building?" The professor said, "I don't know if there are ghosts. But I do know one thing. In 1976, the building underwent a major renovation. Workers broke open a wall on the second floor. Inside the wall cavity, they found a book wrapped in oil paper. When they unwrapped the paper, the pages could still be turned. It was a hand-copied edition of Dream of the Red Chamber. The pages were filled with annotations in brush pen calligraphy. The handwriting was delicate, like a young woman's handwriting. The last page of the book contained a line of text, copied by Shen Yulan at the Red Building, autumn of the 29th year of the Republic. The 29th year of the Republic, 1940. The year Shen Yulan died. That book was taken away by the Cultural Relics Bureau. It is now kept in the storage vault of the Suzhou Museum, not on display. If you go to the Suzhou Museum and ask the staff, they won't tell you whether such a book exists. Because the book's existence is not listed in any public collection catalog. But if you persist and manage to find an old specialist who knows Gu Ming's friend, he might confirm that such a book does indeed exist. But he won't show it to you. Between the pages of that book is a strand of hair. Very long, very black, very fine. Whose hair? You don't need to ask. After the professor finished telling this story, the classroom was completely silent. No one said a word. For that semester's final assignment, Gu Ming wrote a paper about the legend of the Red Building. The professor gave him an A. But at the end of the paper, the professor had written a line in red ink, well written. But some things are better written out. Once you write them, those things won't follow you anymore. Gu Ming says he doesn't know what those things the professor was referring to, the story itself, or something else. He doesn't want to know. Gu Ming says he once browsed the Suzhou Museum's website by chance and stumbled into their digital, ancient text platform. He typed Red Building into the search bar. The system returned 10 results. The first 9 were academic papers about the Suzhou and Jiangning imperial textile factories. The 10th was titled, A Collection of Documents Related to the Suzhou University Red Building. When he clicked on it, only one sentence appeared: this document is not available for online viewing. Please visit the Suzhou Museum Ancient Texts Reading Room to make a reservation. He didn't make that reservation. He knows that book is waiting for him there. He doesn't want to go. Maybe one day in the future, but not now. Some things you have to be ready for before you can face them. He's not ready yet. Gu Ming says he no longer walks past the Red Building at night. He takes a different route. An extra 5-minute detour. Not because he's afraid, because he doesn't want to disturb. The footsteps pacing the corridor have developed their own rhythm. If one day that rhythm changes, if one day those footsteps stop, he would be more worried. They're still walking, which means they're still going. They haven't disappeared. It would be worse if they disappeared. Then nothing would be left. Not even the gaze of that 22-year-old girl. Gu Ming says he still sometimes thinks about Shen Yulan's gaze in the photograph. She wasn't looking to the side of the camera. It took him over 70 years, no, it took him years to understand where she was looking. She was looking at what lay 70 years beyond the camera lens. At a certain day, 70-some years later, at a certain person standing in front of her photograph, drawn by her gaze. She knew someone would come to look at this picture. She knew that person would stop and wonder who she was. Through the yellowed photograph, she saw Gu Ming, 70 years in the future. She was waiting for him. She waited. And she found him. Then she continued waiting for the next person. Gu Ming has also heard an even older version of the story. During the Japanese occupation of Suzhou, the Red Building was used as a base by the Japanese military police, the Kempitai. The second floor of the Red Building was converted into an interrogation room. Many resistance fighters were interrogated and tortured in that room. Some never walked out again. Shen Yulan stayed in Suzhou because she had joined the resistance. In 1940, she was discovered by the Japanese at the Red Building. She died on the second floor of that building, in the same room where countless resistance fighters had been held. The coroner's report said heart failure. But those who know the history of that room know exactly what happened there. It wasn't heart failure. It was a broken heart. So the footsteps on the second floor of the Red Building, they aren't the footsteps of ghosts. They're the footsteps of a 22-year-old girl waiting for a dawn that never comes. She's been waiting for over 80 years. She'll keep waiting. Students at Suzhou University say that if you pass the Red Building at dusk and listen carefully, you might hear a sound coming from the second-floor window. Not crying. Not talking. A poem. Someone reciting in a very soft voice. When you were born, I was not yet born. When I was born, you had already grown old. That poem was Shen Yulan's favorite. She copied it onto the last page of that hand-copied Dream of the Red Chamber. When she died, the book was sealed inside the wall cavity, wrapped in oil paper. Waiting to be discovered someday by someone breaking open a wall. In 1976, that wall was broken open. The book was found. It was taken out, sent to the museum, sealed in a storage vault. But Shen Yulan's spirit was not taken out. She is still there, at the place where the wall used to be. Every night she still stands where the wall once sealed her in. She is still waiting for the person she thought would come for her. She doesn't know that person will never come. She doesn't know that many years have passed outside. Ming later told this story to a friend. After listening, the friend said something that kept Ming awake all night. The friend said, "What if Shen Yulan wasn't killed by the Japanese? What if she wasn't part of the resistance at all? What if she was just an ordinary student at the Red Building? She heard footsteps upstairs every night, and she wanted to know what they were. She went up to the third floor. She discovered something she shouldn't have. And then someone made sure she would never speak about it. The official story was heart failure. In that case, the light she leaves in the second-floor window every night, it's not waiting for dawn. It's a warning to future students. Don't go up there." And the Dream of the Red Chamber sealed in the wall, it wasn't a gift she left for the world. Someone didn't want that book to be seen, because it contained things that shouldn't have been written down. In 1976, the wall was knocked open. The book was found. But the contents of that book have never been made public. To this day. Why? Because the book tells the truth about why a 22-year-old girl died on the second floor of the Red Building. After hearing his friend's theory, Ming lay in bed staring at the ceiling for a long time. There was a crack in the ceiling stretching from the corner to the light fixture, like the lines on some kind of map. He turned off the light. In the darkness, a detail suddenly came back to him. The first time he went up to the second floor, he counted the doors along the corridor. 6 doors. But later, when he looked at the architectural drawings of the Red Building, the blueprints showed 7 doors on the second floor. 6 existed on the plans. The 7th was not on the plans. But at the end of the corridor, a door was indeed there. A door with no handle. Only a small round peephole. He didn't go to investigate. He moved. He cancelled his lease. He never went back. Every year, when new students enter Suzhou University, the upperclassmen tell them one thing: don't go for walks near the Red Building at night. It's not a school rule. It's passed down through student experience. No one explains why. But every Suzhou University student knows this rule. Just as every generation knows that you don't go up to the second floor of the Red Building. In Ming's graduating year, the Psychology Association held a farewell event. After the event ended, he stood alone at the entrance of the Red Building waiting for a taxi. The autumn wind carried the scent of magnolia leaves. He looked up at the second-floor window of the Red Building. No light. He lowered his head, preparing to leave. But he stopped. He heard a sound coming from inside the red building. Very faint. Very distant. Not footsteps. Not voices. It was the sound of pages turning. Someone flipping through a book. The soft rustle of paper being turned by fingers. One page. Another. Very slow. Very patient. Like someone reading a very thick book. He stood there listening for about a minute. Then the sound stopped. He got into the taxi. As the car drove out of the campus gate, he turned back to look at the red building. There was light in the second-floor window. Very faint. Not electric light. The light of burning oil. Ming says he has never seen anyone in 2024 still using oil lamps for lighting. There are no stores in Suzhou selling oil lamps. Unless that lamp has been burning since 1937. The driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror and asked where he was going. Ming gave him the address. The driver started the car. Through the rear window, Ming watched the red building grow smaller. Becoming a red dot. Finally disappearing into the shadows of the trees. He said he breathed a sigh of relief. He had been afraid that when he looked back, he would see a silhouette in the second-floor window. But there was no silhouette. Only light. That lamp has been burning. On the windowsill of the second floor. In the autumn of 1937. In the winter of 1940. In the spring of 1976. In every September when new students arrive. In every June when graduates leave. It burns there. Like a silent watcher. Waiting for someone to walk in, pick up the book, open the pages, and read the poem written on the final page. When you were born, I was not yet born. When I was born, you had already grown old. There are 2 more lines to that poem. Ming didn't speak them aloud. The 2 lines he didn't say, when you were born, I was also born. When I was born, you had not yet grown old. You and I were born at the same time. Does my heart reach yours? Ming says he has never once seen the story of the red building in any officially published Suzhou local chronicle. Every official record skips over the red building. As if the building doesn't exist. But every Suzhou University student knows it exists. Every old Suzhou resident who has lived here long enough knows it exists. It's not on paper. It lives in people's memory. And that kind of memory grows on its own. Passed from generation to generation. Everyone who hears the story of the red building adds something of their own to it. The story gets longer. The details multiply. But the core never changes. A 22-year-old girl died on the second floor of that red building. She stayed there. Sometimes, when you pass by late at night, you can still see light in the second-floor window. If you visit Suzhou, if you pass by Suzhou University and see that old red building, it's beautiful in daylight, red brick, white windows, green shade. But if you go at night, don't look up at the second-floor window. If there's light in that window, don't stop. Keep walking. That lamp is not lighting your way. It was left there by someone 100 years ago for someone who would never arrive. She will keep the light burning. Maybe for another 100 years. The old professor at Suzhou University says he studied the story of the red building for more than 20 years. He searched through all of Dongwu University's archives. The record of Shen Yulan's death in 1940 was just one line in the files. No details. No cause of death. No coroner's report. No funeral record. She came and went like a shadow. The only information left in the files was her name, her year of enrollment, and that single line with her year of death. No photograph. No transcript. No address. Nothing. But in a corner of the archive room, the professor found a brown, craft paper envelope. Nothing was written on it. He opened it. Inside was a black and white photograph, the same group photo of the Literature Research Society that Ming had seen at the end of the second-floor corridor. On the back of the photograph, a line was written in pencil, Literature Research Society group photo, taken spring 1937. Everyone in this photograph is no longer living. The professor said this line wasn't written in 1940. From the handwriting and the degree of pencil oxidation, it was probably written in the 1960s. That means 23 years after the photo was taken, someone found it and wrote that line on the back. At the time the photo was taken, all 23 young people were alive. 23 years later, every single one of them was gone. Some may have died of old age. Some may have died in the war. Some may have died with their cause never recorded. But the young woman in the light blue cheapao, second row, far left, hers was the quietest of all those deaths. No war. No disease. No accident. Just one line, heart failure. The professor said he later made a copy of that photograph and kept it in his office. Sometimes he would stare at the photograph, lost in thought. He felt he should do something, but he didn't know what. Eventually, he retired. He left the copy of the photograph in his office. He said, maybe the next person sitting in this office will know what to do. The person who later sat in that office was the president of the Psychology Association. He hung that photograph at the end of the corridor for everyone passing by to see. Every single person who saw it would stop at the second row, far left. They would all ask the same question. None of them received an answer. I later asked Ming, do you still believe that story? He said, I don't know if I believe it or not. But every time I pass the red building, I look up at the second-floor window. If there's no light, I walk on peacefully. If there is light, I stop and look at it for a while. What are you waiting for? He said, I don't know. Maybe I'm waiting for her to look out the window at me. Maybe I'm waiting for her to turn off the lamp. Maybe I'm waiting for her to finally find whatever it is she's been looking for, whatever that might be. Then she can leave. That building can finally be quiet. Suzhou University's Psychological Counseling Center can move to a more suitable place. But he says the lamp is still burning. Maybe one day it will go out. But at least today, it hasn't. Many years after graduating, Ming was in the Suzhou Museum exhibition hall and saw an old photograph. It was a panoramic view of the Dongwu University campus from the Republic era. In the photo, you could see the bell tower, the Jingjing building, and the red building. The second-floor windows of the red building were open, curtains fluttering in the wind. The photo was taken in the spring of 1936. Ming stood in front of that photo for a long time. He thought, in the year after this photo was taken, that young woman in the light blue cheapao saw something from that window that she shouldn't have seen. He didn't know what she saw. But her gaze, traveling through 70 years of time, had been frozen in that moment, just like the photograph on the wall at the end of the corridor. He thought of something, those footsteps that had paced the corridors of the red building for 70 years, maybe they were never made by the dead. Maybe they were the footsteps of the living, retreading the same path over and over. Everyone who heard the story would slow down when passing the red building. That one slowed step was remembered by the building. Over 70 years, countless slowed steps accumulated into the sound of footsteps pacing the corridor every night. Not ghosts walking. People thinking. He left the museum. It was raining outside. He didn't have an umbrella. He stood under the museum portico waiting for the rain to stop. Rainwater dripped from the eaves onto the stone slabs, making a crisp sound. He thought of those coffins beneath the red building, dug up and refilled. They, too, were waiting for the rain to stop. But they had already been waiting for over 400 years. That night, Ming went home and opened his computer. He looked up the Suzhou University Psychology Association website. In the list of past presidents, he saw a familiar name. That president who had first led him into the Red Building, 2 years ahead of him, now working in Shanghai after graduation. Ming sent him a WeChat message. Do you still remember that room on the second floor of the Red Building? A long time passed before the reply came. One word, yes. Ming asked, did you ever go up there? Another long pause. Once. Also in freshman year. Also curious. I saw a door without a handle. I didn't open it. Another question, do you know what's behind that door? An even longer silence. Then, it's better not to know. Ming didn't press further. He put down his phone and walked to the window. The streetlight outside cast a dim yellow glow through the night. That light reminded him of the warm yellow glow coming from the second-floor window of the Red Building. He pulled the curtains closed. He never opened that chat history again. Ming said the last news he heard about the Red Building was in 2022. Suzhou University conducted an interior renovation of the building. The project lasted 3 months. After the renovation was completed, the Psychological Counseling Center moved from the first floor to the second floor. The original activity room was relocated to the bell tower. The university did not explain the reason for the move. But Suzhou University students noticed that after the renovation, the Red Building no longer showed light at night. The warm yellow glow never again appeared in the second-floor window. Some said that during the renovation, workers broke through a wall and found that hand-copied Dream of the Red Chamber. The book was sent to the museum. The door with no handle was also removed. The room behind it was converted into an ordinary counseling office. Maybe Shen Yulan finally left. Maybe she realized that the person she was waiting for would never come, so she extinguished the lamp and departed. But others say that lamp was never lit by Shen Yulan. The lamp was lit by a passerby. Someone passing the Red Building late at night saw the darkness in the second-floor window, thought it was too dark, and placed a light there. From then on, whenever someone passed and saw the lamp had gone out, they would relight it. Handed down from generation to generation. Shen Yulan left long ago. What remained was the fear of darkness in the hearts of those who passed by. They used the light to drive away the darkness. They couldn't bear to see the window completely black. That light was never a ghost light. It was the human heart. Ming says that whenever someone asks him about the story of the Red Building, he tells it. And after he finishes, he always adds, "You've heard the story now. Don't go and verify it yourself." Some stories are meant to be heard, not experienced. Listen to them and let them settle in your heart. Don't dig them up and try to prove them. The result is usually not what you want. That lamp may burn forever. As long as someone still remembers the Red Building. As long as someone still looks up at the second-floor window. As long as someone still slows their step when passing by late at night. It will not go out. Remember, some stories are meant to be heard, not experienced. Listen, and keep them in your heart. Don't go seeking proof. What lies behind that door, those who know won't say, and those who don't know should never find out. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. New urban legend every day. Wukong's Archive, where short is the story, but long is the life.